Every now and then, I come across a story so unbelievable, so cruel, so diabolical that it's pretty much impossible to believe that it's true. Unfortunately, this story is very true, very gut wrenching, and very unnecessary. The unaliving of three people was so unnecessary, so unwarranted, and so incredibly evil. It sent one man to prison for life, and it sent the youngest man ever to live on the state of Texas death row until his execution this year at just 28 years old. The motive for this crime was a red Camaro. Yeah, no, I did not stutter. Three innocent people lost their lives over a red Camaro that two teenagers believed they were entitled to. Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before we get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Side note, I have been getting so many really, really sweet messages from you guys, and I read them and I respond to them, and they mean so much to me. Like when I tell you, thank you so much, you made my day, like I appreciate you, I mean every word of those messages. I really, really, truly do. So I wanted to come on here myself and say that I am the person behind the responses, and I appreciate you so much. I really, really do. It really makes my day when I get a notification. It's something so sweet from one of you guys because I really put so much work into these videos. So for you guys to like take time out of your day to not only watch them, but then to write to me about how much you appreciate them, it means more to me than you'll ever know. I just want you to know that. Okay, back to business. Key players in this story are the victims: 50-year-old nurse Sandra Stotler, her 16-year-old son Adam Stotler, and his 18-year-old friend Jeremy Richardson. The perpetrators, who were 19 years old at the time, are Michael James Perry and Jason Burkett. October 21st, 2001, Michael Perry and Jeremy Richardson go over to the Stotler home. The four teens were acquaintances that met through mutual friends. Perry and Richardson knew that Adam Stotler came from a very successful family. Sandra Stotler was a mom of 6 whose husband had died years prior to this incident. Adam Stotler was actually Sandra's grandson. So what happened was his mom, who was Sandra's daughter, got pregnant when she was 16, which oddly enough is the same age that Adam lived to. After she gave birth to Adam, Sandra and her husband adopted him and raised him as their own. The family lived in a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a gated community called Highland Ranch. The original plan the teens came up with that night was to go over to Sandra's house and ask Adam if they could spend the night there, making up a story that they had no place to go. Assuming that he would say yes, which he probably would, given the type of family that he came from. Then late in the night, they planned to steal the keys and steal the red Camaro. How they plan to get away with this, your guess is as good as mine, because it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who took the red Camaro when the Camaro and the teens are gone. When they arrived at the home, they rang the bell, and Sandra, who was baking cookies at the time, came to the door. When they asked for Adam, Sandra told them that he wasn't home at the time, but that she would let them know that she would let him know that they stopped by. So the teens, she shuts the door, the teens leave, they go back to the car, and the plans change. They realize in that moment that it would be easier to just kill Sandra and take the Camaro. For unknown reasons, Sandra had left her garage door open and the door to the home unlocked. So like you go through the garage, then there's the door to the home. So the garage door was open, and then that door to get into the home was unlocked. That was like back in the 60s, I want to say 50s, 60s. Don't leave your doors unlocked. Don't do that. Jason Burkett goes to the front door and he tells Sandra that the two are having car trouble and he asks to use her phone, a request that Sandra willingly agrees to because she was a good person. So while Sandra's being distracted, Perry goes through the garage, enters the home, into the home's laundry room, and he lies in wait. At some point, he steps out of his hiding spot and he shoots and kills Sandra. They then remove a comforter from the master bedroom, wrap Sandra inside of it, place her in the back of their truck, and drive her to Crater Lake to dump her body. After they're done, Perry and Burkett get back into the truck, and they head back over to the Stotler home to steal the Camaro. But when they arrive back at Highland Ranch, the gates are closed, meaning the only way to get to the Stotler home and the red Camaro is to wait for Adam Stotler to arrive back home with the key to the gates. So, Michael Perry and Jason Burkett lie in wait once again. How Jason Burkett and Michael Perry met. Side note, let me say this now. Let me say this now. If for some reason during this I say Matthew Perry, I don't mean Matthew Perry, but I gotta be honest, the whole time I was researching this, I thought Matthew Perry in my head so many times. So if I say Matthew Perry, I don't mean Matthew Perry, I mean Michael Perry. Okay. So back in 2000, Jason Burkett was dating a girl who had a friend named Miranda. One afternoon, Burkett is driving when he sees Miranda on the side of the road arguing with this guy, who later turned out to be Michael Perry. Burkett pulls over to make sure that Miranda is okay. That's when she tells him that Michael Perry has been living in her trunk, the trunk of her car. Yeah, he's been living in the trunk of her car, and that her father found out. They got in a big fight, and her father wants him gone. That's when she asks Burkett if Perry could live with him in his camper, only for a month, she says. Burkett feels bad for Perry, tells him to put his stuff in the truck, and drives Perry over to the camper that he lives in. At the time, believing that Perry came from a bad home life, Burkett treated him like an older, younger brother because he was a couple months older than him, but treated him like a younger brother, gave him a place to stay, gave him food, even gave him some cash. Not knowing at the time that Perry actually came from a very loving, very caring, and very supportive family. The only stipulation that they had for their 19-year-old son was that he had to get a job. He didn't want to get a job because he was a lazy, entitled, spoiled brat. So they told him to get out. Rightfully so. Get a job, man. What? Get a job. 19, you're living home. You have every perk in the world, and you come from a great family. Get a job. You have it made, okay? He didn't want to work. So he thought that living in the trunk of his girlfriend's car would be a way better option. 19-year-old Jason Burkett did not have quite the same home life. His mother was a single mom raising 4 kids by herself, living on disability, food stamps, subsidized housing, the whole nine. His father, Delbert Burkett, is actually living in a jail cell across the street from where his son currently resides. Hashtag goals. Okay? Delbert Burkett was in and out of jail 5 times throughout his life. He did 2 years, 5 years, 30 years, and his current 40 years for 8 felony counts. His long career as a criminal stems from a lot of drugs and alcohol. Selling it, manufacturing it, stealing for it, and even murder. Perry and Burkett wait for Adam to return home with Richardson. They fed the teens this story about a mutual friend of theirs that's hunting in the woods with them that got hurt and needs their help. And Adam and Richardson follow Perry and Burkett into the woods. Once they get there, they are murdered, and the 2 friends leave them behind and get in Adam's truck and take off. They return to the Stotler residence with the clicker and they steal Sandra's red Camaro. Oh, side note also, because this will come up later, Adam's wallet was in the car, obviously, because he was driving. It was his car, the white Isuzu. It's his car, so as well as there, Michael Perry, steals the wallet and is carrying around the wallet with the ID, pretending to be the dead Adam Stotler. Put a pin in that. So, while Jason Burkett steals Adam's white truck, I almost said Matthew. Michael Perry steals the red Camaro. In other words, if this is also another side note that comes up in a documentary, if the gate to Highland Ranch wasn't locked that night, there's a very, very good chance that these two boys would be alive today, which is really, really sad. Like, they lost their lives because Adam's mother put him behind a gated community for safety reasons, and that's probably the reason that he's not here anymore. Not that I'm blaming anybody, but I'm just saying it's that's crazy to think about. After the robbery, Perry and Burkett show off their new stolen red Camaro, showing up at the bar and taking friends for joyrides. Oh, and also showing off their guns while telling some friends that they killed an old lady for her car. Other friends they told that they bought a winning lottery ticket, cashed it in, and used that money to buy the car. Thankfully, some of their friends were smarter than your average bear, and they went to the police and turned them in. Prior to this, though, Michael Perry would get arrested for speeding in the red Camaro. So prior to the friends going to the cops and telling the cops, this is what they told me, he gets arrested for speeding in the red Camaro, okay? Because he killed Adam. Perry was driving around with the wallet and the license. I actually didn't remember that it comes up this quickly, but it is what it is. So when Michael Perry got arrested, he told police that he was Adam Stotler. He got arrested as Adam Stotler, and he bailed out of jail as Adam Stotler. After the friends talk to police, they go and arrest Michael Perry and Jason Burkett. An arrest that turned into a car chase and a shootout. Both Jason Burkett and Michael Perry were shot multiple times and hit with glass and debris. While in the ambulance, Michael Perry admits to the murders. And even after he's released, because the hospital releases him, obviously the cops are there to arrest him, take him to jail. Okay, so after he's released from the hospital, he gives a taped confession. And this is also important because later on, he's going to go back in this huge ass writing. It's like 50 pages, so I cut that down a lot. But he's going to tell you all the reasons why he didn't do this. But this is his confession. And it is said that he knew things that only the actual person responsible would know, which is common for police to withhold information so that if you come and you say that you know certain things or that you're the person responsible, the only way that they know that you really are telling the truth is if you know certain things that nobody else knows except for police. Last week, the week of October 22nd to the 26th, my friend Jason Burkett and I decided we needed to get a vehicle or two vehicles. We both know a younger white male, Adam Stotler, known to us as Adam Stotler, whose parents have a lot of money. They also have a newer Camaro and Isuzu Rodeo. On Wednesday, 10/24/01, Jason and I made a plan that we were going to ask to spend the night at Adam's house, and we were going to take the Camaro in the middle of the night while Adam and his mom was sleeping. We went to Adam's house about 7 p.m. on Wednesday, 10/24/01. Jason was driving his girlfriend Kristen Rennell's blue Chevy truck, and I was riding in the passenger seat. We had a 12-gauge shotgun with us. Jason and I got to Adam's house, and his mom told us that Adam was not home and that he was at the skate park and would be home around 9 p.m. Jason and I left in the truck, but before we got out of the subdivision, Jason said that it would be easier to get the car with only one person in the home. Jason and I then made a plan that Jason would knock on the front door. I would sneak in the back door through the garage with the shotgun. We went to Adam's house on foot and left Kristen's truck down the road. I walked around to the side of the house through the garage, and Jason knocked on the front door and asked to use the phone. When I heard Jason talking on the phone, I went into the house through the back door in the garage. Once in the house, I hid in the laundry room between the kitchen and the garage. I then knocked on the back door, and when Adam's mom came to the back door, I her one time in the side near the back with the shotgun. She fell to the floor, and I dropped the shotgun. She then moved or tried to get up or something, and I grabbed and shot her one more time. She fell to the floor in front of the laundry room and garage back door. Jason freaked out and ran to the front door and opened the door. We calmed down a little and grabbed the blankets and sheet off the bed in the bedroom near the kitchen and put the blankets and sheet over her because we did not want to look at her. Jason ran and got Kristen's truck and brought it back to Adam's house. Jason backed the truck into the garage, and we dragged Adam's mom's body and blankets into the garage, where we loaded her back into the truck with the blankets and sheets. I could not find the keys to the Camaro, and I remembered that the inspection sticker was expired and Adam's mom never drove it. Jason then got into the driver's side of the truck, and I got in the passenger seat, and Jason drove to an area he called Crater Lake. I did not know where Crater Lake was, but I remember driving down a dirt road, then going across a big bump and seeing some type of pipeline or something. We then drove down a cleared road and saw an old stripped out truck blocking the road. The road to what Jason called Crater Lake was off to the left of the stripped truck. Jason turned the truck around and first tried to open the tailgate, speed backwards towards the pond, and tried to slam on the brakes to get the body to slide out into the water. He did that, I think, twice, but it would not work, so we grabbed her body, we rolled her down into the water. Jason and I then threw the sheets into the water on top of her, covered her up with some sticks and brush we found nearby. It was about 8:20 or 8:30 p.m. by that time, and we drove to pick up Kristen, where she works at Big Dog Sports at the Outlet Mall in Conroe. I jumped the fence and ran to Adam's house. I got in the Camaro, which was parked in the garage, and drove it out of the garage. I pressed the button to close the garage door, but it would not close, so I drove off. I drove out of the gate, met Jason, and we left to go on our way to the trailer. Jason drove the white Isuzu with the shotgun in it, and I drove the red Camaro. We went home, smoked several cigarettes, and then got cleaned up and went to NetLife. The rest of Appellant's confession was admitted into evidence at the punishment phase of the trial. We picked up Kristen and drove back to Adams subdivision. Jason drove, Kristen sat in the middle, and I sat on the passenger side. We still had the shotgun with us. When we got to the subdivision, we could not get in because we did not know the gate code. We knew that Adam would be home soon, so we waited at the gate, and Adam pulled up in the white Isuzu Rodeo with another guy I knew as Jeremy in the passenger seat. While Jason, Kristen, and I waited at the gate for Adam, we agreed on a story to tell Adam. Jason and I told Adam and Jeremy that a friend of ours had shot himself while we were all hunting squirrels, and we needed their help to get him. We left the front of the subdivision and turned right onto the road in front of the subdivision. We were still in the truck, and Adam and Jeremy followed us in the Isuzu Rodeo. We then came to a stop sign and turned right. We then took the first left off that road and crossed the railroad tracks. We drove down a dark, winding road and stopped at, I think, was the first dirt road on the left. We all parked there, and Jason, Jeremy, Adam, and I started walking back into the woods off the dirt road. Kristen sat in her truck. After we walked a while, Adam realized where we were and said that he knew an easier way to get our friend. Adam and I went back to Adam's Isuzu, and Jason and Jeremy stayed in the woods. Adam drove me in his Isuzu to the first subdivision on the left off the same road where we were on. Adam said that there was a road that went into the area we had earlier walked to. I think we turned onto the first road and on that left in that subdivision and stopped at a cul-de-sac. Adam and I got out of the Isuzu and we saw Jason walking towards us with the shotgun. Jason asked if we heard the gunshots and said that he was trying to let us know where he was. I told him that I heard 2 or 3 shots. Adam then walked towards Jason, who did not have Jeremy with him, and Jason told him that Jason would take Adam to where the others supposedly were. I walked back to get my cigarettes and I saw Jason shoot Adam in the left side. I then covered my eyes. I heard a second gunshot and uncovered my eyes. I then saw Jason leaning close to Adam and fire a 3rd shot at close range. I walked over to Adam's body and got his car keys out of his pocket. Jason and I then went to the Isuzu and Adam got in the driver's side with me in the passenger side. We went back to where Kristen was waiting and Kristen asked Jason what happened and then said, "Never mind, I don't want to know." Jason then said, "You're right, you don't want to know." Kristen's sister called and Kristen was upset and said she was going home. The shotgun we used came from a burglary that Jason and I did on Ave E by the Salvation Army. By Salvation Army, really? It's very nice of you guys. Jason and I both know the homeowner and he drives a green Ford Ranger. We took a Glock 40 and 12 gauge Defender out of the house. The 12 gauge Defender is the shotgun we used to kill Adam's mom, Adam Stotler, and Jeremy. I also took Adam's wallet out of his Isuzu with his driver's license. Okay. So, tell me again how you're going to later, once you find your ass on death row, turn around and say that none of this is true. This confession was completely false. You had nothing to do. This was not you. Really? Really? For somebody that had nothing to do with this, you sure know a whole hell of a lot of information. In this interview with police, Perry also told police where the locations of the bodies were, along with other details that only the killer would know. He actually goes on to blame Burkett for everything, saying, "When your friend picks you up in a car and tells you a story, you believe them. You never think you're getting into the car of a woman that your friend just killed." What? In an interview with Susan's daughter, she says, "He didn't live for a while. I'm starting to live again. Basically, I just shut down. When your whole family is ripped from you, you get to the point of, what's the point of living anymore? I don't have a family to share it with. I know I have my kids to raise. I don't want them to have a depressed life or a miserable mother all the time. For about 4 years, I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in the house, took the phone off the wall, refused to talk to anybody. I figured if I don't get close to anyone, I won't get hurt anymore. I shut down. My grandmother shut down. Our lives are empty. My brother was my best friend. He was only 16. He was such a great kid. He was in love for the first time in his life. My mom always protected me. I got married September 16th, 1995. My dad, Mel, he was a preacher. He was supposed to marry me and Ken. He died 6 months before the wedding. He was hit by a train, him and my older brother, and they were gone. Right as I'm walking down the aisle, my mom pinned my dad's wedding ring inside my dress, right over my heart, and said, "I didn't want your dad to miss this." She was in so much pain that day, but hid it from me because she knew how happy I was. Our family is just so incomplete. It took me forever to realize that she was really gone. I couldn't call her anymore and ask her questions. I got rid of the phone because I didn't want another phone call telling me that someone else in my family had died. I can't handle those phone calls anymore, so I just cut myself off from the world. That is gut-wrenching. Gut-wrenching. And, well, I lost my father when I was in the 7th grade. And, long story short, my grandfather stepped right in. So I never felt like I was without a dad because he stepped into that role of dad for my sister and I almost immediately, but to say that I don't sometimes wonder what our relationship would be like right now, or how different my life would have been if he was around, that would be a complete lie. I absolutely still think that to this day. I say that to say, if you've lost a parent or both parents, I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. Thank God I still have my mom, but I know how it feels to lose a parent, and it's horrible. What this poor woman went through is unimaginable. Unimaginable. I can't even begin to imagine her pain. Okay. Michael Perry was sentenced to death, and his accomplice was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Following some time on death row, Michael Perry changed his confession to saying that he was completely innocent and wrote pages and pages of reasons proving this. Even though physical scientific proof says otherwise, most notably, there was a cigarette that was found under Adam's body that had Michael Perry's DNA on it. So in other words, the cigarette was smoked, the cigarette was put out, and then when Adam was killed, his body fell on top of it. When the police came and moved his body, they found the cigarette under his body, and it had Michael Perry's DNA on it. So that means one of two things. Either you're a very sloppy criminal, or you're really stupid and you don't know how DNA works, you dummy. Either way, how did a cigarette with your DNA get under his body if you claim he claims he wasn't even there? All right, let's go into some of his nonsense. My name is Michael Perry. I am a 22-year-old man writing my story from a Texas death row cell. I like to tell you about an injustice so severe that it might cost me my life. I tell this in hopes that I might gain support needed to shed some light to my situation and the many injustices that are going on inside the Texas justice system. So let me begin. On October 30th, 2001, I was arrested of Mrs. Sandra Stotler. It was alleged that me and a Jason Burkett snuck into this lady's house around 7 p.m. the 24th of October, where I then was alleged to have this lady 2 times with a 12-gauge shotgun. The motive for this horrible crime is believed to be her 1997 Camaro. Her body was found on Saturday the 27th of the same month in a secluded lake called Crater Lake. A Mr. Randy Pond discovered the body around 4:30 p.m. He immediately called the police, and they sent their detectives and crime scene investigation to the scene. Before the body was found, a friend of Miss Stotler's, who was concerned about her, called police and asked them to go check her house. They found upon entering the house a puddle of blood underneath a rug in the foyer. They also noticed some bloody shoe prints leading to the middle of the garage. CSI Damon Hall, along with Detective Carrie Mace, were among the many to collect evidence and investigate the crime scene. At the house where Mrs. Stotler lived and where the crime is said to have happened, testimony states that they found blood and black splatter, which, as defined by CSI, is blood that shoots from the wound back towards the welder of the weapon. They found this on the wall and the ceiling in and around the foyer. Blood tested positive for Mr. Stotler. Bloody shoe prints inside the foyer area leading to the garage and stopping in the middle of the garage. Note, there was never any positive match to the shoe print, but it was eliminated as possible match due to size dimensions. However, my co-defendant, Jason Burkett, was a possible match. William J. Bodziak, a former FBI agent, testified on this matter. After analyzing the evidence, Bodziak could not be eliminated. He continued to testify that his foot is the approximate size and his foot seems to fit the perimeter of this print quite well. They found several fingerprints inside the house, but as CSI Damon Hall testified, none matched Matthew Perry. A shotgun shell, consistent with ones found in the truck of Kristen Willis, the girlfriend, were found inside the laundry room by the foyer. It was a spent shell and one that was shot at Mrs. Stotler. When given the opportunity to test for fingerprints, the DNA said that they would rather have ballistics test run on it to match it to the gun. So, once again, no prints were found. Inside the garage of the house, they found tire marks consistent with those of a truck and similar to the ones found on Kristen Willis's truck. At the scene where the body was found, not much more was discovered. Sheets matching those found at the Stotler residence were found. Some more tire marks matching the ones found at the house were found. So, with not much more to go on and no real evidence to start with, the search begins. On October 30th, 2001, I and a friend were arrested in the Woodlands at an apartment complex. Here, the police kicked in the door and ran inside, guns drawn, screaming and hollering with dogs barking. Everyone inside had previously jumped to the floor and put our hands behind our backs at the request of police. Even so, upon entry, I was kicked in the ribs, then ranked up from the floor and tossed against the wall. Okay. Well, let's talk about what you did to this family. Who cares if they roughed you up a little? Sorry, just being honest. Here, a cop that looked vaguely familiar pistol whipped me and screamed, "Why did you kill my friends?" My response was, "What are you talking about?" And as a response to this, I had a pistol shoved in my mouth. I don't believe that, by the way. He then told me, "You're going to tell me what you did and why you did it now." And then he removed the pistol from my mouth, and I told him, "What the hell are you talking about? Get me my lawyer." Only to be slammed against the wall again and then roughly led outside where I was slammed on the sidewalk. At this point, I was scared, for I had already been told that I killed someone, refused my right to an attorney, and beaten by the police. I don't believe you. After sitting in my boxers in the cold weather for several minutes, the medical personnel insisted that I be put into the ambulance due to my injuries, the cold temperature, my lack of clothing, and the fact that I was shivering. So I was led to the ambulance, where I was introduced to a Detective Mace and the man who had abused me earlier, Sergeant Sidney Blair. Inside, the abuse continued. I was constantly slapped, and my arm, which had an injury to the bone, was squeezed and poked and included pain. I blacked out from the intense pain shortly after this phase of ABUSC. Evidence to support this. The officer that arrested me, Sergeant Sidney Blair, who now works for notorious Homeland Security, was found to have a reputation of assaultive behavior. In one case, we have secured a written affidavit from the victim, and Aaron Geisner. This man, who at the time was only 18, was pulled over for a traffic violation. When approached by Sergeant Blair, he placed his hands upon the wheel. Sergeant Blair then asked for him to remove his keys from the ignition. When Mr. Geyser then moved to do so, he had his head smashed into the dashboard and wheel. For no reason? Because he was complying? This resulted in his braces ripping through his mouth and splashing blood all over the inside of his car. He was then thrown to the pavement, where he further injured himself and was kicked around before finally being let up his Jeep, which shows to the extent of the blood splatter and pictures of this man's face and other injuries that resulted in this interaction with Sergeant Sidney Blair. The same man who denies using any force on me. Sergeant Blair was also fired from one, possibly two schools where he reportedly worked as a security officer. Through investigation, we have discovered that Mr. Blair used to work at Willis High School until he was fired for smashing a student's head through a car window. Mr. Blair also reportedly worked at Conroe High School, where he was also asked to leave for smashing a student's head into a locker. How does he keep doing this, by the way? How does he keep smashing minor students' heads into things and never get arrested? Like, how does this keep happening? Like, how does he keep getting away with this? I just want to know. Like, I'm curious. This, again, is the same man who arrested me and claims that he never harmed or persuaded me in any way. Reports from the ambulance personnel and the hospital, as well as the police reports, show that upon leaving, we headed to Conroe Hospital, which was approximately 13 miles from the apartments. We, as records show, arrived at the hospital 58 minutes later. So it took an ambulance with emergency lights and a police escort 58 minutes to drive a couple of miles. While inside this ambulance, I was accompanied by Sergeant Blair and, for a short while, both Sergeant Blair and Detective Mace. Since my arrival on death row, an investigation has turned up pictures taken from TV helicopters which were there at the time of the arrest, as well as their video clippings. It shows me walking to the ambulance and shows me in good health, with no visible injuries or visible blood on my body. We have pictures taken by CSI personnel at the hospital. In these pictures, I am covered in blood, scratches, cuts, and bruises. These pictures also show a bruise behind my ear and free-flowing blood coming from my ear. When asked, neither the police or medical personnel can explain how all these injuries came about. They could, however, say we did not get into a wreck before arriving at the hospital. The medical supervisor at the Montgomery County Jail stated that they represented injuries from police interaction. Transcripts show that all throughout trial, the district attorney's office stresses how cooperative I was. They even stressed how friendly I was. Yet, when I was taken to the hospital, it was found that I had several hematomas on the side of my head behind my ear, which caused swelling and free-flowing blood to come out of my ear. The injury was so severe, records show that upon arrival at the county jail, Vicki Howard, the medical supervisor, refused my admittance to jail. She stated on record that it was obvious what type of injuries I had received and that there was no report as to how I received these injuries, that she didn't want to be liable. She ordered that I be taken back to the hospital to have my head x-rayed. When asked how these injuries came about, she stated on record police interaction, yet they stressed on how friendly, cooperative, and non-resistant I was. It has been discovered since my arrest that I now suffer from PTSD and severe anxiety problems as a result of the events surrounding my arrest. I mean, that might have been true, but let's talk about all the PTSD that you've given to Sandra's family. So severe that the medical department had to put me on medication before I was comfortable enough to be inside a small medical room with TDC officers. There has been an alarming number of cases coming into view where the arrested persons has been mistreated, abused, assaulted, and refused their right to an attorney. The state wants us to believe that in no way was I forced or into making any statement against my will. They tell us I was a non-resident, cooperative, and friendly. However, the proof clearly shows that I was assaulted, denied my rights, and ultimately persuaded into this statement, meaning the confession, that he knew all of this crazy information. And of course, all throughout this ambulance ride was where I received unexplained injuries, is where I was supposed to give this voluntary statement. Then there is the fact that this was all over the paper, front page, and anybody could read about it, as record shows that I did. So, how could anyone know about something they didn't witness? You could have been told about it by a friend and or could have read about it on the paper or seen it on TV. Even considering all this, there is so much more. The DA's office was so caught up with their need for a win, they didn't even pay attention to the facts. Rather, they were too caught up in the propaganda. For if they did pay attention to the facts, they want the jury and the public to believe that my statement is true, that it is a fact. They do not only want this, but they also need it, for it is the only thing that resembles evidence against me. So let's look at it. My statement states that the crime occurred on the 24th. This is also what the DA's office told the jury, the public, and sadly the victim's family. Yet in trial, unnoticed by my ineffective counsel, the medical examiner, Dr. Paul Schroed, who was the district attorney's time of death, cause of death expert in the trial, he testified on record that the time of murder was either on the 26th day of October or the 27th. He states this both to the prosecutor and my attorneys. This is all on record. Okay, But what he's forgetting to mention is that it's an estimate because Sandra's body was laying in water. So when a body is laying in water for days and days and days, it's hard to tell an exact time of death. So it is a guesstimate. And just discovering through investigation is that the death certificate issued in this case states that she died on the 27th. Once again, not the 24th. So, based on facts and expert testimony and findings, the death occurred sometime between Friday and Saturday afternoon. Note, remember the body was found around 4:30 p.m. on the 27th. Something that was also discovered is on the 26th between 7 and 7:30 p.m. Neighbor states in an affidavit for the state that they never came out in trial that she saw a truck that she had never seen before at the Stotler residence shortly after she heard gunshots. None of this was revealed at my trial. It was only just discovered by the DA's office. However, having knowledge of this information but never shared. So let's talk about the facts. On the Monday morning of October 26, 2001, at approximately 9 p.m., I was arrested and went to jail for traffic violations and evading arrest. That was with the red Camaro. That was stolen after Sandra was dead. I was arrested and was in jail from early morning Friday the 26th all the way until around 9 o'clock p.m. Saturday the 27th. This is all on record. Right, but you were driving Sandra's red Camaro and evading police, and that's why he forgets to mention this. You dumb motherfucker. We have access to the arrest report, jail booking list, and my banned paper to verify all of the times. So I was in jail at all of the times that this medical examiner, the witnesses, and the death certificate indicate that the crime happened, which was a guesstimate. This all contradicts the voluntary statement that is supposed to be fact. Now, just so I can cover all avenues, I'd like to go over the 24th also. Even though it has now clearly been proven that the crime actually happened between the 26th and 27th. At times I was in jail. Let's go over the 24th. Okay, let's. The DA's whole entire case is built around the statement that I'm supposed to have made so freely and voluntarily. They state that on October the 24th, I and Jason Burkett approached the Stotler residence. We went to the front door, asked to talk to her son, and were told that he was not there, and decided to go back and rob her. The prosecutors told the jury that I grabbed the shotgun, ran around the side of the house, and opened the door, entered the garage, opened yet another door, and entered the house myself, all of this. Then I was to have knocked on this door from the inside to draw her back to the back of the house. They tell the jury that I shot this lady 2 times with a shotgun, ran into her bathroom, grabbed sheets off of her bed, covered her, searched the house, used the phone, then put her in the back of the truck and drove off. We were then to have driven all the way to Gangerland and dumped her body in this secluded lake, Crater Lake. This is a complete different city. We were to have done all of this, yet reports from the crime scene and detectives state that they found no fingerprints matching me. They found no DNA matching me. They found no witnesses to say I committed this crime at all. Only evidence found was evidence that shows I could not commit this crime. That's a bold-faced lie. It is. And if you didn't commit this crime, how did you give such a detailed confession? Okay. And why did you tell the police when you were arrested that you were Adam Stotler? Okay, so much so that Adam's sister thought that he was still alive because they hadn't found his body yet. They only knew about Sandra, and she was told Adam's been shot, he's going to the hospital. Okay? But it was you. It was Michael Perry, not Matthew. It was Michael Perry pretending to be Adam Stotler, but yeah, he had nothing to do with this at all. Nothing. Go fuck yourself. Sorry. Okay. This is just like, I'm so annoyed. I'm already so annoyed reading this, okay? We live in a scary society where the justice system can convict a 19-year-old child of such a horrible crime that sentence him to death, when at the same time they have alibied him, hid evidence, distorted the truth, and all in all, proved that not only did I not commit the crime, but that I could not have committed this crime. It's crazy to me that you are still, well, I mean, not anymore, now, but, and as I continue, it only gets worse, and with that, sadder, for you will see that there was obvious evidence that pointed towards the real killers. Yet, they went after me, a 19-year-old child who has no history of violence and no record. Or you haven't been caught. There's always that. Some people that have no history of violence have no history because this is the first time they got caught. So I have proven, or at least I hope I have, beyond a reasonable doubt, that I could not and did not commit this horrible crime. I have showed the following. The prosecutor's own experts placed the time of death on the 26th, 27th, estimate the time of death, estimate the 26th or 27th. That on the 24th, the day that I was to have supposedly killed Miss Stotler, that the prosecutors themselves have alibied me by collecting testimony and affidavits that place me away from the crime. And they can deny none of this or say it's false because it was evidence they put on. Therefore, they would have to be lying, and they would not do that. Kristen Willis's dad is a police officer in the county that this crime occurred, a veteran cop in a small county. They found a hair, well, Kristen is the girlfriend, by the way. They found a small hair sample on a bloody sock on the scene. The match to this sock was found inside of Kristen's truck. Yet, when the crime lab tested it, they reported that it was ruined during testing and want us to believe that they got no result back because of this. One of the scariest pieces of evidence is a t-shirt of Kristen's that they found with blood back splatter on it. Back splatter, as described by CSI, is the blood that shoots back towards the wielder of the weapon. The piece of information was hidden from my attorneys, so therefore it did not come out in my trial. My co-defendant, Jason Burke's attorney, stumbled upon this piece of evidence halfway through his trial. Otherwise, it would have still been hidden. When asked, they told his attorney that the DNA test on the blood found on the t-shirt, they could not get a good enough sample to run a test on. But when the defense attorneys for Jason asked for a piece of the shirt so that his own expert could run a test on it, he was denied. The victim, Miss Sandra Stotler's blood, was found all over Kristen's truck, inside and outside. Because you put her in it. Like, you put her in it. You put her in the truck. Okay? And you were the passenger. And Jason Burkett, the one that was driving, was Kristen's boyfriend. Your accomplice. What? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shotgun shells consistent with one found at the scene, and that was the one used to kill Mrs. Stotler, were also found inside Kristen's truck behind the seat because you were in the car. Her truck was at the scene of the crime. At the same day and time that experts state that the crime occurred. And that same day and time the neighbors say they heard gunshots. At a time, records show that I was in jail. Jason Burkett. This is a man with a criminal record as long as I am tall. A man that while he was in juvenile detention, he tried to stab someone with a spoon. A man that had so many people terrified of him, people were getting restraining orders on him. A man that his own wife while pregnant with his child. A man who beat me unconscious with a flashlight, which resulted in a concussion to the back of my head. A murder weapon was a 12-gauge shotgun, which was also Jason's nickname, Gage. It was recovered with Jason's DNA all over it. They find shoe impressions at the scene that, when analyzed by the state's expert, the man stated that based on general overall size and dimensions, Jason Burkett could not be eliminated. His foot is the approximate size, and his foot seems to fit the perimeter of the print quite well. He was charged and found guilty for Mrs. Stotler's son, as well as one of his friends. He was also charged with attempted capital murder of the police officer he ran over. Well, maybe he was charged with Adam's death. But again, how did a cigarette with your DNA end up underneath Adam's body? Science doesn't lie. People do. Science doesn't. It's just a fact. Science doesn't lie. Numerous different witnesses testify in affidavits that the murder weapon was Jason's and that he referred to it as his baby. That could also be true, but that doesn't mean that you didn't pull baby's trigger. Just saying. He has no alibi for the 26th and 27th. He confessed to numerous people in the county jail that he did it. He has not denied that he was a part of it. So what have you proven so far? Nothing. He wrote a letter to me in county jail asking why I was taking the blame for Kristen. I don't believe that. He threatened me and my family if I testified against him. Jason and Kristen were engaged and both have a lot of evidence pointing their way. Neither of them have alibis for the 26th or 27th, besides for each other. So why, or better yet, how did I get convicted of this crime? I have several opinions and theories if you will only read one. If I have to. I guess I will. For you guys. I'm over this already because it's just a big 50 pages of lies. And I'm fucking over it. My trial attorney was and is known around Houston by his clients to be a greedy man who is only concerned with money involved and not the life that money represents. He went after my family's money, accepting my case, making promises before he even knew what type of case it was. He even continued to raise his fee on several occasions. On his second visit with me at the county jail, he informed me that he would not be concentrating on my innocence, but on saving my life. During my trial, not once did my attorney imply that I was innocent because even your attorney knew that your fucking ass was guilty. Okay, that's probably why he didn't say that you were innocent, because he didn't want to look like a jerk off. The only defense my attorney put on at trial was my state of mind at the time of my statement, where this is a good defense strategy in discrediting a statement, and it helps because I was, at time of statement, under the influence of several. It still was nowhere near the whole defense that should have or could have been used. He at the time did not have the knowledge of the TV tapings or records of Sergeant Blair. This was due to the lack of investigation on his part. This would have been severely damaging to the prosecutor's stance on Sergeant Blair never persuading me and my statement being voluntary. Even if that was true, how did you know all this information that only investigators knew? But let's take it a step further. How did you know where the bodies were? How did you know where the bodies were if you had nothing to do with it? And then there's the cigarette, of course. How? How did you know all of this? If you had nothing to do with it, how the fuck did you know where the bodies were? Medical examiner's testimony stating crime occurred at the time I was in jail, therefore providing an alibi for me. They gave an estimate because the body was in water for such a long time. They couldn't give an exact time of death. Death certificate stating crime happened at the time I was in jail was never introduced. The shirt of Kristen that was found with blood splatter on it. Blood spatter that was to have matched that which would have been found on the killer's shirt. Never introduced. They found a shirt in Kristen's truck, maybe. Okay, fine. That doesn't mean that, number one, it was her shirt. That does not mean that it was her shirt. And more importantly, you said in your confession that you were in that truck. A witness who stated they saw a truck at the scene on the 26th around 7:30, never seen before, and then heard gunshots. The same time I was in jail. The truck was said to have been Kristen's or a close match. Record supports this. Never introduced. In my case, when I got on the stand, I spent hours on the stand answering questions about things such as failing to attend school, a total of 36 extraneous acts I committed as a child. I was on the stand on trial for murder of an innocent lady, and the DA's office is harassing and attacking me for hours, as record shows about profanity used as a child. They're trying to give the jury an overall perception into the kind of person that you were and are. The DA's office threw in a lot of prejudicial facts about profanity used as a child, smoking underage, etc. They knew exactly what they were doing. They probably did. Good. They didn't want the jury concentrating on the facts because the truth will reveal itself. I am not on death row for any of those 36 acts. As a matter of fact, I was never convicted of any other crimes my whole life. Didn't I just say that before? By the way, I haven't read all of this nonsense. I'm reading it now. This nonsense. And didn't I just say before, a lot of times when it's your first offense, it's because the first time you got caught. I'd like to speak on this issue a little bit. A child is on trial. His own life is at stake, and because the DA can provide no evidence against him, they attempt to make the jury believe that I'm such a bad person that even if I may be innocent, I'm a bad person anyway, so go ahead and find him guilty anyway. So, as you read through the summary, please keep an open mind. Try to put yourself in my shoes to understand how one could possibly feel sitting 23 hours a day in a 7x10 cage with nothing to curb the loneliness or the sadness at knowing that you're innocent. That if you cannot reach out and prove this innocent, you will be murdered. No. What you did was murder. What is done to you is consequences of your actions. You murdered 3 innocent people. You are getting put to death as a consequence to your actions. You are not getting murdered. Let's be very clear about that. I am sorry. Nobody is murdering. These are consequences to your actions. Okay? So, before we bring this to a conclusion, let me recap the facts one more time to make sure that I've covered everything. We're not recapping facts. We know the facts. We're not recapping. I'm not recapping his bullshit facts. We all know the facts. We've talked about them 100 times already, right? I can only give my opinion. It is for your benefit, in caps. You're in caps. So the average citizen can feel comfortable with the system giving us a chance at proving innocence, when in reality they just rubber stamp us on through to the gurney. Back to the matter at hand. Regardless of whether the crime happened on the 24th, 26th, or 27th, I am innocent. Facts prove this. No, they don't. No, they don't. Evidence and lack of evidence has proven this. They can place both Kristen and Jason at the scene and have evidence on both of them. They themselves placed me away from the scene and in jail, so therefore making it impossible for me to have committed the crime. The sad thing is none of these matter, none of it. In order for me to be free again, the state of Texas has to swallow their pride and admit that they were wrong. This will not happen without help, powerful help. Texas often does not follow the law. Even when the Supreme Court orders something, Texas will go out of their way to blatantly ignore it. Okay, one more thing. He made appeal after appeal after appeal to the Supreme Court, and they denied every single one of them. Okay? They prove this time and time again with no end in sight. The only time that Texas is willing to give in is if they feel not giving in is the worst option. If they are not pressured into it, they will not do it, regardless of right or wrong. Texas is getting away with murdering innocent people. And what are we doing about it? What are we going to do about it? What we have left our society to come to when we value a win over a human life. What has our society come to when we value a car over 3 human lives? Money and power over justice? If we, I can't. This is making me so, like, I could feel my blood fucking boiling right now. The balls on this kid. Isn't, I mean, yeah, he was 22, 23 when he wrote this. Money and power over justice. If we let this continue, what do you think our future holds for us? What type of world do you want your child or grandchild to grow up in? Or was the fear the very people pay or was the fear the very people paid to protect them? Trust that things will only get worse if these people don't take a risk. I know this is scary. There are reputations to consider, careers to worry about. Please believe that I understand that this is scary to jump on board behind a kid who is on death row, convicted of a. It is much easier to blow this off and go on about your day-to-day life. It would be much easier for me to give in to my pain, hurt, and anger and take it out on those who suppress me. It's easier to do like some and give up and try to cause harm to anyone and everyone. I could be vengeful and feed my anger's hunger, but to uplift your consciousness, do I have to become a monster? You already are, friend. But I have chosen not to. Why become the monster society claims me to be? I will not let them change me. I am a loving and caring young man and will stay that way. I have instead dedicated my time to trying to help others so they may understand the reality of our situation. Situations that each citizen has helped create by choosing to do nothing. I come to you with a chance to change that, a chance to do something, a chance to get behind a righteous cause, to make a difference, to save a life, and ultimately to save hundreds. I will end this in hopes you will hear my cry. I'm not. It is better for a leader to make a mistake in forgiving than to make a mistake in punishing. This mistake will cost a life, my life. What about the 3 lives that you took? Because he took those lives. I don't look what anybody says. Look, he took those lives. And as far as I'm concerned, he got what he deserved. July 1st, 2010, the Allen B. Polunsky unit in Texas, the last day of Michael Perry's life. The timeline reads as follows. 7 o'clock a.m., the guard comes to Michael Perry's unit and tells him to get up. 9 o'clock a.m., Michael Perry takes a shower. 11 o'clock a.m., Perry asks for paper and pencil to write letters. 12:30 p.m., Perry's mom arrives for a final visit with him because his father actually recently passed away, like right before his death. His dad passed away. 3:30 p.m., Perry is giving his last meal. 3 bacon, egg, and cheese omelets, 3 chicken and cheese enchiladas, 1 Coke, 1 Pepsi, 1 Dr. Pepper. 5:45 p.m., Perry begins the walk to his death, hopefully thinking about how at age 28, he lived a decade longer than 2 of his 3 victims. Like, think about that for a second. Like, just stop and really think about that. He's walking to his death at 28. Granted, he is the youngest person to be executed, at least in Texas, okay, at the age of 28. But he lived a decade longer than 2 of the 3 victims. That's a mind fuck. For me, it is. 6 o'clock p.m., Perry enters the chamber. On one side of the room, behind a glass, were the family members of the victims that he killed. On the other side, in a separate viewing room, were Perry's loved ones. When asked if he had any last words, Perry said yes. Of course, he said yes. Okay, ready? I want to start off by saying to everyone that's involved in this atrocity that they are all forgiven by me. Well, isn't that fucking nice? How lovely of you. Mom, I'm ready to go, Warden. Coming home, Dad, coming home. And a single tear rolled down his eye. 6:02 p.m., he's strapped to the gurney. 6:03 p.m., the solutions begin to flow into his body. 6:08 p.m., the lethal dose begins. 6:17 p.m., Michael James Perry is pronounced dead. The whole execution would take just 9 minutes, but it would be, here we go again. Think about this. The whole execution took 9 minutes, but it was more humane and less frightening than the death of 50-year-old Sandra Stotler, 16-year-old Adam Stotler, and 18-year-old Jeremy Richardson. Okay? How about that? Perry was the 14th prisoner executed this year in Texas, the nation's most active death penalty state. I've said it once, I'll say it again. If you fuck around in Texas, you're gonna find out. And I don't hate Texas for it. I really don't. Like, got a lot of respect for them for it. Okay, I'm sorry. I do. Don't. If you fuck around in Texas, you're gonna find out. If you guys are still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to, because it really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. And again, to all of those, to all of you that are sending me the nicest, sweetest, most lovely messages, I love you guys so much for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are the best. And stay safe out there.